Hi, Harry here for the Rant on Friday, November 15th. I think this election and this period is going to go down in history for a couple of reasons. You have Donald Trump, kind of a left field candidate running for the second time and promising to make America great again. Well, I'm sorry, Donald, this is going to be kind of hard because the United States and Canada together, North America, is coming into a plateau, peaking long term. And this is something happening throughout the entire developed world. Southern Europe's already peaked and heading down dramatically in the coming decades. East Asia, Japan, South Korea, China, also peaking and heading down dramatically in the decades ahead. Northern Europe and the United States move more sideways, okay? The millennial generation brings us back up in their peak spending around 2037 in the US to where the baby boom peaked, and then you added some productivity, and there's maybe a little mild progress, okay? But I am saying, and I've been saying for a good while, that stocks, particularly in the United States, but globally, in developed countries, are at the highest point they're likely to see for decades and decades. I mean, this has never happened before. There's always been more progress and more growth in the developed world. But we are fully urbanized in the developed world now. Our demographics are peaking one after the next. We started with Japan and then North America, North Europe, and it just keeps going down after that. So people aren't going to expect this, okay? And I don't know what's going to happen in this election, but I can tell you one thing. If Trump and Elon Musk, now his new partner, are going to come in and do some much overdue and needed government cost cutting, what does that spell, folks? I mean, just think about it. You're cutting jobs from the government, 20% of the economy, and growing, okay? That's almost a guaranteed recession right there if they do what they say. Now, Congress may block it, on and on and on, but I'm just saying, you've got a long plateau, 2007 to 37, in spending for North America and Northern Europe. Every other part of the developed world already headed down, okay? East Asia, Southern Europe. How can this work out well? How is Trump going to make America great again? Not his fault if he doesn't. So we as investors need to be planning for a different investment environment. Stocks are not going to be something you can just buy and hold now for the rest of your life or into retirement or through your retirement if you're older like a lot of us, okay? So you have to be in bonds, the highest quality treasury bonds. And people say, I can't live on 4.5% interest. Yeah, you can. You better, because those bonds are going to save you from losing your assets. They're going to be the only thing that goes up if we have the most overdue recession in history. If you go back all the way till when I was born, okay? We've had a major recession, give or take, every decade. We haven't had one, we're going on 16 years. And people say, well, that's a good sign. No, this is $27 trillion in artificial stimulus, overpropping the economy, creating the greatest and 100% artificial bubble in history. How can this end well? There's no way it can end well. And it may happen slower if they keep stimulating somehow, or it may just be a sudden and brutal crash of our lifetime. And I think that would be the best ending to get this thing over with, flush out all this debt and stimulus and move on. But the millennials only bring us back up. At their peak of spending in 2030, only back where the baby boomers peaked in 2007. And we've stretched it way beyond that. So we've borrowed from the future. You got to get this, folks. When you overstimulate in the short term, you are borrowing from future spending when things come back to reality, okay? And you're creating more inflation now to block what would have been a deflationary era. So not only a long-term downturn from 2008 to 22, 23, but a deflationary downturn like the 1930s. That's what all this 27 trillion in stimulus has bought. We have covered over the next Great Depression, much like 30 to 42. Now, can we skip over this? Well, we have so far. Are there consequences to this? If there is not, I'm going to quit my profession in 2 years, okay? I think there will be consequences to this. I think we've just created a bigger, again, totally artificial bubble. I mean, the bubble of the late 90s, the first tech bubble, was from really strong growth and big surges in the 45-year technology cycle, not just the great baby boom demographic cycle. And the second wave of the technology cycle, which is on a different clock, 45 years versus 39 years for the demographic generation cycle, came in to 2020, maybe late 2021, even though it really should have peaked around late 2019, early 2020. So we've even extended that cycle. Governments have blown away all fundamental cycles. And if you have to ask me who's going to win this war, governments or God with natural cycles, I say God's going to win this one, okay? We are going to see probably the worst downturn in our lifetimes. And now, instead of when it should have occurred from late 2019, early 2020 into late 2022, mid 2023 for the economy on a lag, we're going to see this from late 2024 into 2026, 2027. Off cycle. We're going to ruin the millennials boom because we didn't clear out the debts and zombie companies and excesses of the greatest baby boom and bubble in history. So not only a 90-year cycle, but a 40-year cycle came together. In 1929, both those cycles were in line and both went down into the 30s and early 40s, okay, together. This time, the demographic cycle peaked in 2007, and the technology innovation cycle in late 2019, early 2020. And both of those should have been down now. We should have had a second major crash, and we didn't, so we have to have it off clock or something different because the government keeps fighting natural cycles. Again, I can't overstress, there's no way I think the governments can beat these natural cycles because you're fighting against what they call a higher power, okay? So again, all we can do is be intelligent and realize markets are, I don't mean overvalued, I mean 2 to 3 times higher than they would have been if I play out my natural cycles with a peak in 2007 in the generation cycle, and then a second peak, maybe the same or maybe a little higher on the technology innovation cycle, but not 2 to 3 times higher, okay? The stock markets are just way overvalued. The economy's way overstimulated. And again, the only way you can overstimulate is to borrow from future natural spending. So it's going to be very hard to come out of the downturn. Again, I think we've largely obliterated the millennial spending wave, and stocks are the highest here or wherever they peak near term that we will ever see for our lifetimes as baby boomers, most of us, okay? Or even our kids' lifetimes in many cases. I mean, people are not going to get this till it's happened, okay? We've seen nothing but growth since the late 1700s when free market capitalism and democracy created the greatest explosion in growth in the developed world ever. Well, again, developed world is all peaking, all moving sideways, and we've so overstimulated, we will never get back to these levels. So again, I know it's hard to do this when the markets keep edging up, but it's best to be out of the markets here. If you want to get in, hey, there may be a play here for another so many months. I mean, this market could go up at the latest into the Bitcoin cycle, which peaks on the 4 years in late 2025. That's the thing now. We pushed this off far enough that we're into the best Bitcoin cycle, crypto cycle, into late 2025. So that's the latest this overstimulated rally can go, but there will be a very deep downturn to follow this. So again, if you want to be in with a quick trigger. If not, be happy to be in cash or treasury bonds here, because treasury bonds will be the only thing that goes up when this everything bubble, global bubble crashes and everything else goes down. That'll be the only thing. I mean, the treasury bonds of the US will be largely the only thing, okay? Other good bonds, maybe in Australia and countries like that, will do okay, but it will be the US treasury bonds will be the safe haven, and that's the last place people are gonna be, and that's where you should be for the future. And again, I'll keep you updated. If it looks like this bubble is going to extend into late 2025, I think we'll see more evidence of that by late January. Then I'll let you know. But I still say be on the cautious side and let's wait for this greatest bubble in history to burst, greater than any in history.